Barbara had a vision of this single-seat, open car. Let's make Batman part of the Batmobile. Let's see him sitting in there. So we put it in the center, as far back into the vehicle as we could, and made as long a vehicle.
Longest in history, possibly.
Yeah, we even sheeted the front track so it's wider than the rear track so that it looked like it was this ominous thing that was coming at you and was never going to stop. It was also painted gloss black, and gloss black, is the worst color for showing imperfections in the surface. So a huge effort went into absolutely perfect vehicle surfaces.
The car was really complex. It had a lot of different systems on it. It was basically a NASCAR chassis. The driver had his own fire system. On top of that, the flame system had its own CO2 purge system. Redundant electrical had 12-volt systems, 110-volt systems. The effects lighting was separate from the operation of the vehicle. A lot of them could be operated from the cockpit. There's also radio control on it, so that all the driver really had to do is hold the wheel and drive the car.
It was fun to see the Batmobile drive, really more than anything, was to be able to have some sort of sense of what this machine can do.
One of the systems that I think was the most unique was the nose of the vehicle had to look like it had multiple rings revolving in different directions. One of our designers proposed an idea where we would place openings strategically cut, and he would change the speed of how fast this cone turned.
That was something that's a really simple idea, but we had to go to the camera, find out what the frame rate they were shooting, shoot the cone, and dial the speed so that it was matched so that the camera would see it correctly. So there was some prep time, and as far as Batmobiles and Batman movies, that's the money shot, yeah.
The lighting was also chasing the interior on a lot of electroluminescence paper, and it almost looked like a pinball machine in terms of all the different things that were going on there. But in terms of their function, they really didn't show up as something other than just in a couple of spots where he used it to communicate. Creating a flame that actually projects straight out is a challenge, and the way we solved it was we basically built mini rocket motors.
We shot nitrous oxide as an oxidizer down the middle to oxidize the fuel so it wouldn't just wick out, it would actually burn it. So they're pretty hot. We had to acquire special tires from Goodyear, and I had some contacts with Goodyear and asked them to cut bat tread in what's considered a prototype tire. They call them smooth mold tires. They're produced so that the tire companies can try out different treads. To some degree, I kind of regret it because the car was so spectacular in terms of the rest of it. Everybody always noticed the tires. When we roll it around, you can see that it would leave bats, bat trail.
Little bats everywhere.
I wanted to rethink the Batmobile. It's a key component of Batman's arsenal.
The Batmobile was so unbelievably well engineered.
They've really come up with something absolutely unique. There hasn't ever been a car like this before.
What's that? Well, the tumbler? Oh, you wouldn't be interested in that.
I felt that it was very important to design the Batmobile first before we approached any of the other aspects of design of the film, because I had a very specific idea in my head about a contemporary approach to a Batmobile, and our approach to it would tell everybody who saw it a lot about what we're doing with the whole film, which is a more grounded reality in which we're trying to base this story.
When we first started talking, Chris had this idea of crossing a Lamborghini and a Humvee. Chris was sort of making a little primitive model out of Play-Doh and said, sort of like this.
It was very, very crude. It looked more like a croissant than a car, but I felt very strongly that if we cracked that and showed it to people, they would either get it or they wouldn't, and if they didn't get it, then I'd know I was in trouble.
Then fairly early on in the process, Nathan Crowley, the production designer, came on, and while I was writing, this was crazy, he created a little model shop in Chris's garage. It was very much a film school atmosphere. That was part of the fun.
We really decided to be private and just started what I call model bashing. We just started making models of cars.
It's got bits of stealth bomber in it, it's got bits of Lamborghinis, bits of Hummers, and all different things put together in this marvelous combination.
Chris write his script and then come into the garage and I'd be covered in glue with car concepts.
The funny thing is the craftsmanship was really good too. You could see in Chris a kid that had built little car models when he was younger, because you know he and Nathan really had this down.
As an evolutionary process, Nathan was able to build one, and I would look at it and make suggestions or actually change things like myself, and then we would move to the next step and then the next one.
We made about 5 or 6 Batmobiles. The one is the finished Batmobile, I think is the Mark V, so we took about 8 weeks to build.
When the script was done, we sort of presented not only the script, but all these great Photoshop elements of what the world and the Batmobile would look like, so that Warner Brothers could get the whole picture. And that initial prototype is 90% what the finished Batmobile became.
We took that model to England, found these great guys to produce the car full size.
Chris Nolan wanted the Batmobile to be a real car, not just a car that looked pretty but didn't actually function, you know. His gem was, look, I want this to be a mean machine, I want it to perform, I want it to go through things, and that was, you know, how we went into developing this whole car.
The challenge is first technically how to make something as complicated as that steer and work. Every piece of it has been made. You start with a clean jig, put the chassis on, start building the roll cage around the driver and the occupants in there, and build it up from nothing. The front end of the car is what is so different. There is no front axle. There's nothing holding the wheels in the conventional way. The wheels have to be held from the outside. It was difficult, but we always knew it was possible.
And 3, 2, 1, go. Chris had described the cockpit opening like the petals of a flower. We tried several times to talk him into an easier system, which made our life a bit easier, but he was not going to have that. The mechanism ended up where the front windscreen had went up into the roof, and then the whole roof slides back, and then the 2 cockpit seats rise up. It was a nightmare trying to get that right. You've just got to have guys who've got technical knowledge of how to put all this together.
They were so faithful to our original kit bash model that the glue blobs that Nathan had put into the model had been reproduced full size. It was quite a strange thing to look at.
It's 9'4" at its widest. Lengthwise, it's 15 feet, and height-wise, it's about 5 foot, I think. Weighs 2.5 tons. There's nearly half a ton of rear axle and wheels and tyres. So there's a big chunk of the weight sitting there.
Everybody was surprised to find that the Batmobile was ready before we thought it was going to be.
That's been very thrilling to watch a model that Nathan Crowley just built in my garage back in LA become a full-size working vehicle.
Here we have Andy and Jim going for the land speed record.
It was about 2 weeks before we started filming that we got the first prototype, without all the bodywork on, just a working chassis with the engine in. So we were sneaking the car around, taking it out to sort of hidden tracks and things, seeing what brakes, what doesn't brake. Start off testing it slowly, just drive it in a straight line, make sure it handles okay, and progressively getting faster and faster. And slowly, through a development process, you arrive at a vehicle that can achieve all the shots on the page.
You can get to play Batman, but unless you're the stuntman who's driving that car, you don't get to have the coolest job.
The stunt side of it is we bring in one of the best drivers, George Cottle, who's young, but he's enthusiastic and extremely talented.
The car has so much potential. In one respect, I have the easy job because I know that if they say the car can do it, I know it'll do it.
We will rehearse every single shot with measurements of the location on a runway prior to going to the location, so that you're aware of any problems before you get to the location when you've got the expense of the film crew there.
It's such a great car to drive, you know, it just screams at you. Literally, you know, the noise is like somebody screaming at you. And I called Chris and I said, does this mean I'm going to be able to keep a Batmobile? And he he said, "You're crazy. Of course you're not going to be able to keep a Batmobile."
This here simulates the jump onto the freeway. The tape on the right-hand side of the frame is the barrier, and the ramp is just behind it.
We'd practiced jumping the car so much, we just testing how the car reacted in the air, making sure it was balanced, whether we needed to put kick ramps on the car.
We went out to try and kill the car. You know, that's what we were trying to do, push it to the limits.
I was waiting for something not to work. It just landed and just took off straight away.
Roll camera, please. 305, Echo, take one. 3, 2, 1, action.
Just worked great, like clockwork. There's nothing I would change if we went back there and shot it again.
We're pleased with the overall performance of the whole thing. The speed, the handling, everything. It's turned out better than expected.